there, happy Monday. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And coming up, Super Bowl 59 happening last night. Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. And I want to explain what the Niners can learn from the Eagles to get back to Super Bowl contention. Because with the way that their Super Bowl hangovers happened, the Eagles were able to rebuild on the fly and win the Super Bowl the next year. That's what the Niners are trying to do this upcoming season in 2025. Before we begin, just want to hear from you. I know everybody who watches this show loves football. What was your reaction to the Eagles thumping the Chiefs? Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. Want to begin with this and just set the table and set the foundation for what we're going to talk about here today. There were a lot of similarities between the 49ers and the Eagles after they both lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 58 for San Francisco last year, Super Bowl 57 for Philadelphia the year prior. And the Eagles in 2023, coming off that heartbreaking Super Bowl defeat, like the Niners suffered a heartbreaking Super Bowl loss to Kansas City, had a noticeable Super Bowl hangover, just a dark cloud hovering over the team in the aftermath of that loss that carried over into the ensuing season. Philadelphia in 2023 was poorly coached. They were very sloppy. They had a late season collapse in which they lost 6 of 7 games. Then they got embarrassed in the wild card round of the playoffs by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And coming off the heels of that season, there were coaching and roster questions moving forward. Philadelphia had to undergo coordinator changes. They let go of Brian Johnson, their offensive coordinator, hired Kellen Moore to replace him, and then they fired and let go of Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, who replaced Desai, and they hired Vic Fangio. The 49ers this past season in 2024 had a noticeable Super Bowl hangover. Dark cloud hovering over this team. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. San Francisco was poorly coached and sloppy. The Niners also had a late season collapse. There are coaching and roster questions for this team moving forward, and the Niners undergoing coordinator changes, firing Nick Sorensen, hiring Robert Saleh, firing Brian Schneider at special teams coordinator, and hiring Brant Boyer. The Eagles realized after that 2023 season, going into 2024, led by general manager Howie Roseman, they needed to make changes. And then Howie crushed the draft and crushed free agency. The Niners now, and after the season, realized, we needed and need to make some changes. And now San Francisco needs to knock it out of the park with the draft and free agency. The Eagles hired Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. The 49ers hired Robert Saleh and Brant Boyer. We saw with Philadelphia how important the hirings of Fangio and Moore were. I think these hirings for San Francisco, bringing back Robert Saleh for a reunion and improving special teams with Brant Boyer, will go a long way in improving defense and special teams, 2 units that let this Niners team down in 2024. What Vic Fangio did with Philadelphia, he turned the Eagles defense around to the point where they went from arguably the worst defense in 2023 to the best defense in 2024, where they had 6 sacks of Patrick Mahomes and went up 34-0 in the Super Bowl. Mahomes and Andy Reid had no answers. Fangio worked magic with that Eagles team year over year. Robert Saleh, like Fangio, one of the top defensive coordinators in the game. And he can oversee a massive overhaul from 2024 to 2025. Here's a look at the Eagles' offseason moves in the draft and free agency, which led to them winning their second Super Bowl since 2017. First round, drafted Quinyon Mitchell, starting cornerback for that defense. Drafted Cooper DeJean in the second round, starting nickel corner for the Eagles defense. Drafted Jalix Hunt. He was a really good player down the stretch, had a half sack of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Signed Saquon Barkley, won NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Signed Zach Bond, a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, alongside Fred Warner, first-team All-Pro at off-ball linebacker. Signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, awesome safety on that back end. Signed Mekhi Becton, starting right guard, turned him from a failed tackle to a really good guard, and then they saw their young players make strides and develop. That's what's going to happen with that Niners 2024 class. You want to see continued growth and development from Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, Dominick Puni, Malik Mustafa, Isaac Guerendo. We saw signs of those players being really good as rookies. Now it's time for them to take a leap going into year 2, and a player like Jair Brown also needs to rebound from a bad year in 2024 and get back to being the player that he can be. The Niners here do have the cap space and good draft picks where they could take a similar path to Philadelphia if they hit on those decisions and choices. And my thoughts on the Niners looking ahead, everything seems so ugly for Philadelphia after 2023. And then it changed in a blink. Everything seems so ugly for the 49ers, and the after effects and the stink of that, we could still smell it and taste it right now. But the gap for Philadelphia wasn't as wide as we thought. I don't think the gap for the Niners is as wide as it feels. I think the offense is bound to improve. They're going to get healthy. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy can be better. I think the defense will be better, and the special teams unit should improve as well. We're going to talk about the pathways for how the Niners can make all of this happen coming up just around the corner. But I first want to tell you about our sponsor, ZBiotics, pre-alcohol probiotic drink that will have you feeling great the next day after you have some fun the night before. Scan the QR code, get 15% off when you use the code ChatSports at zbiotics.com/chatsports, and you can see what I'm talking about. Have you ever skipped a workout because of drinks the night before? Yeah, I've been there. If you're committed to your healthy routine like me, you need ZBiotics pre-alcohol. We all have busy lives these days. We can't afford to waste a day stuck on the couch because of a few drinks the night before. Well, ZBiotics pre-alcohol is the answer we've all been waiting for. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I didn't always bounce back the next day like I used to. Sometimes you got to make a choice. You can either have a great night or a great next day. Well, you can have both. Thanks to ZBiotics pre-alcohol, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's that byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. So go to zbiotics.com/chatsports. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use the code ChatSports at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using our code so that you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics is backed with the 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Use that code ChatSports and that link. Scan that QR code to see what they have to offer. Now, what the Niners have to do moving forward is what Howie Roseman really values, overseeing talent personnel and being a general manager. What the Eagles have done, stack up the trenches, putting an emphasis and using resources along the offensive line and the defensive line. The Eagles' offensive line, best in the NFL, especially in 2024 from start to finish. They really wore down teams by playing bully ball throughout the course of the year, but in individual ball games as well. Niners haven't been able to do that because their offensive line is bad. Imagine if they have a better offensive line with the scheme, with the talent, they could be awesome. And then the Eagles' defensive line loaded with dudes. Star-level players, really good depth pieces, young players making strides with their development. And that Eagles defense straight up balled out against Kansas City on Sunday night. Josh Sweat had 2.5 sacks. Milton Williams had 2 sacks. Jordan Davis had a sack. The rookie Jalix Hunt had a sack. Jalen Carter destroyed the middle. And then the back end allowed, with sticky coverage, that front to get home. They had some sticky coverage. And there is a formula to beat Patrick Mahomes. In 2020, the Buccaneers had 29 pressures against Mahomes. They generated 16 pressures by only sending 4. The Eagles had 26 pressures and did not blitz once. Philadelphia had 6 sacks, the most against Patrick Mahomes in his career. And so 0 blitzes, 26 pressures, 6 sacks, and a pressure percentage of 42.9%. He was running for his life all game long, had no time to throw, pocket was breaking down, and you could tell that rattled him. Then he threw 2 picks. Eagles able to capitalize off those 2 picks and score 14 points off of those giveaways. And the Eagles' defensive line in the playoffs in 4 games, wild card round, divisional round, NFC championship game, and in the Super Bowl, had 92 total pressures, 15 sacks, and a pass rush win rate of 54.4%. Really, since 2019, the Eagles haven't had disruptive defensive lines like that. So what the Niners must do, rebuild the offensive line like the Eagles have been able to do. San Francisco needs a left guard, center, and right tackle. Need to get better there. And if you improve that offensive line, your run and pass game will be better. Brock Purdy's life will be a lot easier. What was noticeable against the Steve Spagnuolo blitzes for Philadelphia in Super Bowl 59, Jalen Hurts had a plan of attack. He got rid of the ball quickly, but the protection in front of him was really good. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Niners need to rebuild their defensive line. You have Nick Bosa. Outside of that, you need to get better at defensive tackle. You need another edge rusher. And so if San Francisco gets another edge and a disrupted defensive tackle like the Eagles replaced Fletcher Cox with Jalen Carter, something along those lines, then you'll really start to see this Niners defensive line produce like we've seen them produce when this defense is at its best. The Eagles wrecked the Chiefs' game plan with their defensive line. Chiefs couldn't run it. Patrick Mahomes didn't have time to throw it. The Niners at their peak were able to do the same. What the Eagles also didn't do against Kansas City that the Niners did in Super Bowl 58, kill themselves. Just think about all of the mistakes that the Niners had against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, yet they still should have won and still nearly won. Christian McCaffrey fumble on the first offensive drive. Botched punt in which they fumbled it away, leading to a Chiefs score on the next play. Blocked extra point. Not blocking Chris Jones. Like, all of these mistakes add up, and the Chiefs always take advantage of those. Philadelphia, on the other hand, played a flawless game and won. They dominated. The Niners did not and still nearly won. If they didn't make all of those mistakes, blocking Chris Jones on a 3rd down, you do all of those things, I think San Francisco completes that quest for 6 last year. Nick Sirianni also had an incredible game plan against Kansas City. He outcoached Andy Reid. Give credit where credit is due. Kyle Shanahan's game plan was not as good against the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58. And I didn't have Nick Sirianni winning a Super Bowl before Kyle Shanahan on my bingo card, but here we are. And I'm telling you right now, it might feel bad right now, but you should have some hope because the Eagles' 2023 season ended ugly. They seemed far off. The following year, they won a Super Bowl in convincing fashion. The Niners' 2024 season ended poorly. But the 49ers can bounce back like Philadelphia did. They just have to go about it and hit on their draft picks, free agency, and they need some of their young players to develop. Most importantly, they need to stay healthy. That's what the Niners can learn from the Philadelphia Eagles. Be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Put out so much Niners content on my social media pages. You can catch me over there as well.